Yo guys, it's slyroh. You already know that it is finally time. Today I'm going to be ranking all of the students from Danganronpa V3. I've been sort of putting off making this list just in the same way that I've been putting it off finishing V3 until very recently because, man, I just don't want this journey to be over, but like, unfortunately it is. There's really nothing more left to be done in Danganronpa V3 or Danganronpa in general. So now is going to be the final character list that I'm doing for a game. Maybe in the future I'd like to do like a sort of overall character list, but this is going to be the last one that is game specific. So we're going to go ahead and run through the V3 characters and talk about them from my least favorite to my favorite. I did decide to only rank the students. I'm not going to bother with ranking the Mono Cubs in this video because, I mean, you range from the worst Mono Cub, which is Mono Kid, and then the best Mono Cub, which is Mono Dam, but all of them are still kind of middling, and they don't really add that much, and I don't really have that much to say about any of them. So I think I'll save that for a future video where I would talk about like every Danganronpa character, but for this video I think it's just easier to rank the students against each other, which even that is sort of weird given the fact of like what V3 is. Spoilers for Danganronpa V3, I'm going to be going all spoilers here, so you have been warned. Starting with the fact that everybody's backstory is essentially just made up and scripted or whatnot, but I still feel like I need to treat it as if like it's real because the characters that we meet are still reacting as if their backstory like is real, and that's sort of enough to be real to me. So I'm sort of taking all their backstories and all of their personalities like at face value for how they're presented in the game, and that is just sort of how I see them. And yeah, so we're just gonna rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. This is all just personal subjective opinion. Feel free to let me know your opinions in the comments, and yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. I will say overall that this cast of characters has the least amount of bad characters. In some of the past lists that I've done, I was still almost starting the top 10 and still having a lot of negatives to say about characters. But honestly, I really only dislike maybe the first couple, and then past that, like, we started getting to good characters pretty quickly. I don't know if my overall favorite character comes from this game, but I do think that the overall quality of this cast is probably better than the other two games. So yeah, that's how I stand, and let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. At number 16, my least favorite student in Danganronpa V3 is Miu. This should not really surprise anybody that watched my playthrough. I did not really vibe with Miu. If you know anything about me, I don't really like characters that are super over the top or like loud or like abrasive, and like Miu just sort of embodies a lot of that. Miu kind of has that sort of like, she's overly like horny and, you know, puts a lot of like sex jokes things into that, and she also has a little bit of sort of I wouldn't say bullying, but she does sort of like like a lighter form of like bullying to other people, and then as soon as she gets caught out of like talking bad about other people, she like can't take it and starts like crying. She's literally sort of like a mix of Himiko and Teru, and those are two of my least favorite characters from Danganronpa 2, so like they literally just combine them into one character. I would say that Miu is not as bad as someone like Teru, but she definitely goes way over the line for me too much, and she doesn't have that much of a redeeming factor. She does have a little bit of her like inventor stuff, and you know, she's clearly smart. She also goes through an event in her life where she like dies or almost dies essentially, which is, you know, that definitely does something to a person. So, you know, it's not all negative, but it is mostly negative, and I was just sort of really annoyed with her presence for most of the game, and I feel like she never really got a full redemption. She never really mellowed out. She's just kind of way too in your face for me, so for that reason she is my least favorite character in the game, at least out of the students, because Mono Kid exists and yeah, he's not any better. At number 15 is Kaito. Not a big fan of Kaito. He's very over the top, in your face, and he's also very much driven by emotion and not logic. I myself feel like I am driven a little bit more on logic than emotion when it comes to decisions, especially when it would be a decision like this where, you know, the characters need to figure out like, you know, who's a killer and all that sort of stuff, and when you sort of strip away all logic just to become full emotion, it really just misses the mark for me. Kaito just really rubs me the wrong way in a lot of senses. He just sort of like will drag Shuichi along and be like, you're gonna be my sidekick, whatever. His free time events were also super dumb. He was just like making up stuff to like, for whatever reason. I don't really understand what his free time event line was even about. How aggressive he got in, I think it was the 4th class trial, where like, you know, we were trying to logically explain that like Kokichi like isn't the killer, and he's just like, no, that can't be it, you're being dumb, or what. I don't know. Kaito's just like, he's too much for me. He's just kind of obnoxious. He's too like loud, over the top. I like my characters a little bit more mellow, and Kaito's just the complete opposite of everything that I want in a character. He doesn't do anything, like, super offensively bad, I guess, but, like, he just doesn't really bring much to the table for me. So, yeah, for that reason, he's going to be my number 15. At number 14 is going to be Tenko. Tenko really had potential to be a really, really good character, but I feel like they didn't really do anything with her premise. I have no problem with her being, like, anti-male. That is super fine. The problem really comes with why she's anti-male and the fact that it's just because she's very gullible and her Aikido master is being like, oh, you don't want to be around males, whatever. She's like, okay, and just, like, lives her life by that. And then you get to break her brain when you're like, hey, did you realize your master's a male? And she's like, what? Oh my gosh, what do I do? It's just like, I don't know. She's kind of dumb. There's no substance behind any of the reasons for, like, what she does. Also, her treatment of Himiko is a little weird. Like, she gets a little bit obsessive. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Like, again, generally, at the base level, I don't really mind it. But there's just, like, a couple times where it just kind of crossed the line to feel a little uncomfortable, mostly because Himiko just doesn't really feels like she's reciprocating in, like, most aspects, and doesn't really appreciate, like, what Tenko, like, feels for her, whether you canonize that as, or headcanon that as, like, just friendship or romantic or anything like that. Either way, Himiko just didn't really reciprocate that in the most part, and so sometimes it just felt a little uncomfortable. That was just how it came off to me, though. I don't know. Other people might feel different. Tenko did have some upside. Like, her energy was nice when you go see her, like, training area, like, the gym, whatever, that she, like, practices in, and you get the cutscene that she just, like, throws you on the ground and, like, throws, I think she throws you on the ground and, like, Himiko on the ground. It's really funny. So there's definitely some funny stuff to her. That's why she's not at the very bottom. But she definitely could have been higher if she didn't just, like, squander all the potential that could have been set up for her. So, unfortunately, that is going to leave her at number 14. At number 13, and this sort of pains me to put him here, but 13 is going to be Gonta. Gonta had a strong introduction, and he's very easy to root for, but my problem with him really just comes from his role, like, in the story. He's just so incredibly stupid, and I know that his backstory sort of makes sense to where, he wasn't raised by humans, so he might not know some, like, basic things, but, like, I don't know, he just doesn't really contribute anything to any of the class trials. Like, it's basically like he doesn't have a brain. It's like he doesn't even try. It's a lot of, I don't know, or I can't do this. This is too hard. I don't know. His gentleman thing is fine. His insect thing is fine. Like, his personality is perfectly fine. It's just his role in the story doesn't do much for me, and I won't ever really forgive the fact that he is, he dies because he doesn't know his left from his right. And instead of asking a clarifying question, before putting in the things that, like, hey, one of these is going to completely mess you up if you get this wrong, and he just, like, doesn't know his left from right and just kind of guesses based off of, like, Himiko's, like, stupid thing. That's such a stupid plot point. I hate it so much. It's why I don't understand. Like, I understand, but it's one of the reasons that I don't rate the fourth class trial, like, super highly, just because the entire Gonta of it all, it, like, really rubs me the wrong way, because he could, like, if he didn't have the memory loss, then he probably would not have been able to put up a good defense. If he did put up a good defense, then maybe there could have been more to his character that would have made him better. But instead, he just has to go through the whole class trial being like, I don't know, because he doesn't know, because his memory was white, because he doesn't know his left from his right. And instead of confirming what his left from his right is, he just assumes and ends up dying as a result. And yes, he did have his own will to actually, like, pull off the murder or whatever, but it just doesn't feel like he did, because he never shows that, and you don't get to see that side of him at all, because he doesn't even remember that side of him at all. Not to mention the fact that he performs, like, the killing to save people from learning about the outside world, just so they can immediately learn about the outside world when he refuses to tell them. I don't know, the Gonta part of the fourth class trial really rubbed me the wrong way, and he just lasted a bit too long. If he was one that died a little bit earlier, you could probably, have a lot of, oh, he had so much potential, he could have done this, he could have done that. But because he didn't, and we got to see him play out, it really just started, like, he just went downhill the more that the game went on. And, I don't mean this to be, like, overly negative. I do still kind of like Gonta, but we're also at the part of the list where everybody above Gonta, I probably have more positives than negatives to say. And Gonta is the last one where I think I have more negatives to say, and it didn't have to be this way. He just needed to show, he doesn't need to have the smarts, like, built in, but, like, if you don't know, just ask questions. I don't know. I just feel like there could have been more that he could have done to at least try to grow, and it didn't feel like he was really doing it. I don't know. That's just my sort of spiel. People might completely disagree, but that's just how I feel right now. At number 12 is going to be Rantaro. Rantaro is one of my favorite design characters, but he also doesn't really do much for the story. I love Rantaro's plot point in the game. the fact that he turns out to be the ultimate survivor. He's a survivor from a previous killing game, and you don't really know any of that until the end. So, you know, he's very mysterious, and then he dies, and then you don't really learn anything about him until towards the very end of the game. So the role that he's used in the story is really, really cool, but there isn't really that much to him that makes him stand out. Even his free time events don't really give that much. They do sort of allude and talk about his sort of ultimate, like, adventure or whatever, and he's, like, looking for his sisters. I don't know, that's, like, perfectly fine. No problem with any of that, but, you know, he's cool, but he just didn't have as much time to shine as some of the other characters, and that's what leaves him this low. At number 11 is Tsumugi. I am never going to forgive myself for early on in the game when I was, like, randomly picking who could be a traitor. I remember looking at Tsumugi's portrait and being like, this girl looks like she could be evil, and then I just completely forgot about saying that, and it slipped my mind, and I wish I would have rode that train harder, because, man, that would have felt amazing for me to actually be right. But because I threw out a random guess and then just never followed up on it, like, you know, as going out throughout the game, I can't really claim any credit for that, but part of it was there. But yeah, Tsumugi as the mastermind is interesting. I think what I like about her is sort of after the fact and seeing the sort of memes about Tsumugi where she's basically just like an ultimate fangirl. She's like such a fangirl that she essentially just like wrote a Danganronpa fanfic in episode 53 of the show. And I don't know, something about that is like really funny to me. She is kind of plain and boring, and she's just like a fangirl of like Juko and trying to like create a good Danganronpa story. And I mean, I do think that she succeeded in that for what it's worth. It's hard to know what part of the characters you see are her and which parts are things that she's just sort of making up to put on a front to blend in with the cast. So that sort of stuff, you know, it kind of goes into a little bit of a gray area there, so where it's like hard to know. But I don't really have any problem with Tsumugi. I think she's fine. And I do like some things about her, so that is what is going to land her at number 11. At number 10, I'm going to put Kurumi. Kurumi is somebody that I want to like even more, but as I delved into her free time events, you really learn that she just doesn't have any other personality other than just being the ultimate maid. I think her design is fantastic. I love her like execution when she's like trying to run and escape. That is honestly one of my favorite scenes in the entirety of V3, and I just remember that like so fondly because of just how desperate she was to like escape. I just thought that was really, really cool. I think for me, if there was any sort of plot point about her sort of struggling like with her own identity of like doing things that she wants to versus like being an ultimate maid and serving others, that would have made her a more compelling character. But she sort of falls into a one-note sort of personality where all she does is serve others, and she's really good at doing that to the point where she is like a secret prime minister of Japan or whatever. And I know people say that it's like, oh, it's too ridiculous, her backstory is like whatever. It's like, I don't really care about that. That's perfectly fine. Danganronpa is ridiculous. If that's too far out of the realm, then I don't know, maybe you're watching the wrong franchise. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens, but especially in this universe where everything's made up. So, you know, I have no problem with that. I do like her, and I think if she showed a bit more depth, she could be even higher. But because she doesn't, that is going to keep Kurumi here at number 10. At number 9, I have Korekio. Quite an interesting character, and another one that has one of my favorite designs, just because it felt so clear that, like, he was hiding something, and, like, there was something more to him, and I didn't know what. And I gotta be honest, I don't really like the sister thing. I'm so tired of Danganronpa trying to force a sister complex into all of its characters. It's very dumb, and I don't like that. But what I do sort of like is the fact that Kyo is essentially like a serial killer that's just like amongst these, you know, this cast here. Like, if you think about all the other killings that happened, especially before Kyo committed a murder, like, the first one was, you know, like, Kayode, like, wanting to expose the mastermind, like, you know, basically sacrificing herself to try and better everybody else. Kurumi committed a murder for the sake of all the people relying on her in Japan, and then Kyo was just like, I'm gonna kill these girls to go join my dead sister because that's just his warped philosophy. And a part of me really appreciates that. I like when there are characters in there that just aren't really good. I just feel like overall I would not consider Kyo to be like a morally good person or character, but I think you need some of those mixed in with all of these like good, you know, friendly, nice people to really sort of keep everybody on their toes, and just it makes for a more fun gaming experience. I also do think that his anthropology is cool. I didn't really understand all that much about what anthropology was before this game, and I feel like I learned a little bit of actual anthropology from Kyo, and I also know that I really am interested in anthropology now. Not as any sort of like life goal, but it's just like a very interesting thing. I like, cultures and things like that. So I think it was really cool to sort of actually understand a little bit more about what that was. So, I mean, if you take away the sister thing, I do think that Kyo offers a lot to this game. He might not have had the smartest plan, and I do think that it would have been cooler if he did commit the one murder in Chapter 3, but was able to get away with it because of the rules of the game that state that if only the person that committed the first murder, the one against Angie, would have been the one executed. So he could have gotten away with a kill, or maybe it was the second one, however it was, but he could have gotten away with a kill, but instead he killed both, and just like, that's a plot point that's really underwhelming, and I don't really hold that too much against Q as a character. That's more against the trial and the game as a whole, I guess, would be a critique there, but I don't really fault that too much for Kyo. He's a serial killer that was just trying to kill girls to go join his sister, so, that's, it doesn't mean that he needs to be the smartest person in the room. But that's all I have to say about that, so let's go ahead and move on to number 8, who is going to be Angie. I am surprised that Angie made it this high up on the list, because I started to find her pretty annoying by the end of it. Her Atua thing is really overwhelming, like overbearing. She's like an ultimate artist, but she doesn't really talk about art all that much. She really just has to bring Atua into every single conversation, and partially that's fine, but it does get to be a bit much. The thing I really love about Angie is just sort of what they do with her in Chapter 3, like the way that she's able to just sort of get people on her side, whether it's manipulating through the use of Atua, and I feel like she does genuinely believe that like what she's doing is right, and so it's sort of like the power that she has over people is crazy. The craziest thing about Angie to me, though, is how right she ended up being about a lot of things, like the fact that she took the flashback light and just like destroyed it and being like, we don't need these are actually destroying our ability to just get along with each other. That was completely right. She was completely in the right to do that. Whether she had the right logic or not, it doesn't matter. Angie was right, and that blows my mind. And I think there's some other things that Angie was sort of onto, like on the right track, and she gets stopped before she could do anything more. Again, I think she was going about it the wrong way, but it is wild how right she ends up being about a lot of different things. And she does have a likable presence. She's always like very happy, very like smiling. So I do appreciate that about her, but like, yeah, Annie's role in the story, I definitely appreciated her more after she died. I do think if she like survived the whole time, I think she probably would have crossed the line and gotten too overbearing to the fact that I couldn't appreciate her character as much. But because she went out how she did when she did, I think it really makes me look back and appreciate her character a lot. And that is what leads her to be this high on the list. Everybody left is really just like some of my favorite characters in this game. Honestly, I could see a lot of these being switched around in different positions if you asked me on a different day. This is how I feel right now, but honestly, from number 8 to number, 2, honestly, I could switch a lot of them around, and they're almost interchangeable, but I feel confident in the order that I have now, so that is what I'm going to keep it as. Which leads us to number 7, which is going to be Kokichi. Kokichi is a very interesting case, because I feel like they tried to recreate the Nagito effect, and they didn't do it as good. Just in the fact that he's sort of a chaotic presence that you don't really understand his thought process for most of the game. But I think, unlike with Nagito, by the end of the game, I still don't really understand Kokichi's thought process a lot. He does do a lot of lying, and a lot of it does seem to be for the benefit of the group, but at the same time, he is, also just a brat and, being mean to people for, no reason as well. So, I don't know. I understand a little bit where he's coming from, but I don't get a full grasp on him as a person, and that's why I can't put him as one of my absolute favorite characters. But having that sort of chaotic presence does help make the game more interesting to play. The fact that he is somebody that is sort of an antagonistic force for a lot of characters, and he isn't just, getting along with everybody. He is offering alternate solutions of, making it seem like he's really enjoying the killing game and how he wants to try and win it and stuff like that. It's a really nice, refreshing change of pace for the rest of the characters in this game. I think Kokichi is a very interesting character within this game. I wish I got to learn a little bit more about his backstory and more about him, but I didn't really learn that much. His free time events are fun, but again, you don't really learn that much about him. So that's the sort of underwhelming part about him, which is why I can't put him as one of my favorites, but I do still like that he's here, and he is a really, really good character. At number 6, and this is the biggest surprise for me, it's Kayode. And Kayode is somebody that I liked, but seemed sort of like the plain generic protagonist, sort of similar like Makoto from the first game, where everybody just get along, we can get through this, whatever. But like, I don't know, going through Kaede's like free time events and just seeing how like wholesome she is and just how friendly she is, she just really has this sort of aura of just like friendliness that you can't help being drawn to. I think if Kaede was like a real person, I would probably be friends with her, probably over like anybody else in this cast. I feel like she just has a personality that's like impossible to not jive with. And, you know, her wanting to expose the mastermind and be willing to commit a crime to that end is still very impressive and selfless. And I really respect that about her. But, like, I don't know, just her personality, her bubbliness, her passion for being friendly and helpful to those around her, as well as her passion, like, for music. Her and Shuichi's conversations are just so good. I just like Kaede so much. And the free time events are definitely a huge boost, and a part of me really understands now why people are upset that Kaede didn't make it for longer through the game, because I do think that she would have possibly been the best Danganronpa protagonist, but because she didn't last for more than the first chapter, then she can't really be the best one, but she is still a very, very great character, and I am glad that I went through the free time events to really let her grow in me the way that I can see that she's grown in other people as well. Another big surprise for me, at number 5 is Ryoma. Ryoma is somebody that is very wild. I almost doesn't even feel like he fits in the Danganronpa universe. His design is out of this world, over the top, insane. His voice matched with his size just doesn't make that much sense. But he's another one that the free time events really improved him for me, and just seeing that, like, his backstory literally is that, like, his girlfriend or whatever was, like, put in this, like, crazy game or whatever and killed. I might be getting the details wrong, but, like, Ryoma's just, like, straight up a murderer. He, like, you know, murdered out of revenge and then is, like, going to prison. And so, like, you can, or is in prison or whatever, and, like, you can understand why he feels like he has nothing to live for. And then that really just contextualizes the fact that he gets the motive video of, like, oh, who's waiting for you on the outside? Literally nobody. Everybody that would have been there for Ryoma is dead in the outside world, the quote-unquote outside world, you know what I mean? Within the context of the motive videos. So it's like, it's really heartbreaking. Ryoma's just sort of like a tragic character that's just like, you want the best for him because clearly he has good intentions. He has like a heart of gold. Even though he does get himself wrapped into like mafia stuff and all that sort of stuff, which, like, you know, he probably didn't make the best decisions to end up in that sort of thing. So it's not like he's like a morally perfect character either. And I just find him to be very interesting. So, yeah, Ryoma, it's kind of heartbreaking, but I think his role in the story is kind of perfect. And I'm not sure there's that much that I would change, but obviously I want the best for him. But, you know, it didn't seem like he was having the best coming towards him, which is very, very sad. I don't know, I just really like Ryoma, and his presence is very cool. So I had to put him up at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Himiko. Himiko is the character that I said was my absolute favorite character when I first met her. I just instantly knew that she was somebody that I was going to vibe with. She's very, like, quiet and calm, very, like, reserved, doesn't really say all that much. She's very much one of those that's like, oh, I have to put in effort, I don't wanna, and, like, I get that, and, I don't know, I just really like her presence a lot. I do like her sort of growth, after, like, during the third class trial, or after the third class trial, and sort of realizing sort of the positive things that Tenko was bringing her, and just the fact that she wants to try and move forward and being a little bit more positive. Like, it's really funny, like, she tries to cheer people up, and the fact that she's being so, like, cheery, like, literally, like, exhausts her to the point that, like, she like crashes real hard. But I don't know, I just really like her presence. Her magic thing is kind of funny. I think in most scenarios it's funny. The class trial, I think it's the second class trial, where, like, it would have been super helpful if she could have actually dropped the shtick for a little bit just to sort of help find the killer. And the fact that she kind of obstructs every opportunity to find the killer is a little bit of annoying, and that sort of docks her from being higher. That's the reason why she can't be number, like, 1 or 2, because she does go out of her way to just, like, obstruct, like, from finding the killer, which, like, I don't know if she understands that if you don't find the killer, you die too, and, like, she's clearly somebody that, like, she doesn't, like, not value her life, so it doesn't really make sense why she would do that, unless, like, she's just, like, physically incapable of, like, explaining magic for some reason. I don't know if she has some sort of curse that, like, she can't explain any of her magic tricks and just has to rely on it being magic, but, I don't know, that's the one sort of downside for me, but everything about her and her presence is just really good. I was so surprised that she actually made it to the end of the game and, like, survived, but I'm very happy that she did. I really like her a lot. I just like her presence, and she's really, really cool. Her backstory is really cool as well. I just like Himiko a lot. There's not much more to say other than I just vibe with her a lot. At number 3, I put Shuichi. Shuichi, who ends up being the actual protagonist of the game. While disappointing at first, and even more disappointing when he removes his hat and then, you have to play with protagonist hair, I think he looked a lot better with the hat. But his sort of story is really, really cool. I think it's about time that the protagonist of the game is also the ultimate detective, because that makes so much more sense that everybody is coming to you for, like, what do you think? What clues did you find? Whereas, in the first game, when Makoto has to be the one to put it all together, or in the second game when, like, well, there isn't an ultimate detective, but, it, like, Hajime is doing the stuff. It makes so much more sense that the ultimate detective is the one that's, like, presenting the clues, making the arguments, things like that. So in universe, it makes a lot more sense. But Shuichi's sort of backstory of sort of having to juggle his pursuit of the truth, but also being scared of, like, the people that he hurts along the way because of the case in his backstory where, maybe the person that committed the crime was justified, but, he still got him, like, prosecuted, and he sort of feels guilty about that. And so it's like, does he want to do that further? And I mean, even in the first class trial, like, Kayode is the person that he's closest to, and if he pursues the truth, he's going to, get Kayode sentenced to death, and he doesn't want to do that, but he knows that he should do that. So he's like, he has to juggle these things at all times. And that happens later when he has to question people like Maki, when he has to question his friends, when has to question whether Kaito, like, did something. He has to go to these lengths to at least pursue the truth, and I do think that's really cool. He's the sort of character that I like that sort of balances the logical part of himself and emotional part of himself, where someone like Kaito is, like, all emotion, no logic. Shuichi is one of those that's not the opposite. He's not all logic, no emotion, but he leans more towards the logical side while still having to balance the emotional part of himself. And I just think that's really cool. I think he's a really good protagonist. Unfortunately, we didn't get Kayode for the whole game, but I'm really glad that Shuichi was a suitable replacement, even if he takes up a, like, sort of a different role. He's not the everybody be happy, let's be friends. It's not quite that simple. He's a little bit more reserved. But I don't know. I really like Shuichi. I think he's a really, really good character. And it's basically as simple as that. Now moving on to number 2, which is going to be Kibo, which is wild. I don't know that I've seen too many people have this, like, love for Kibo, but I really love Kibo. I think he has a very easy to root for story. He's, like, very much like an underdog. I love rooting for underdogs, and I feel like Kibo is sort of treated, poorly for, like, a lot of the game. I feel like none of the other characters, like, really take him seriously. There's the whole, like, robophobia joke, which isn't really, like, a joke. And it's kind of real. I feel like Kibo is doing everything in his power to, like, fit along everybody. And, they're still mean to him, like, a lot. I mean, specifically Kokichi, but also, like, don't forget that in the chapter 2 or whatever, they, like, throw him into the glass panel just, like, without his consent to, like, break it open and, like, recover, get to, like, the evidence or whatever. And I was just like, why are you doing this to my boy? I don't understand. So, the characters are just kind of mean to him, and that sort of makes him easily rootable. The main thing that puts him this high for me, though, is, just his struggle to try and fit in. I do think it's pretty relatable for me and a lot of people that play this game is trying to fit in, because, I don't know, I don't know how many people that play Danganronpa are, like, the cool kids in school or ever were, or cool kids in, I'm not really a kid, so, cool adults in the workplace, and I just understand that sort of struggle to, like, fit in. And also he has, like, my favorite free time event line, maybe in all of Danganronpa. It's not, like, super emotional or anything. It's just, like, he wants to be, like, an idol, and he wants to sing. His singing voice, chef kiss, voice of an angel, honestly. But just trying to find, like, things that he could do for, like, business opportunities and whatever. He's just so pure. He's just, like, I don't know. I love him so much. And, like, I know that he's just kind of like an audience surrogate, but, like, for most of the game, he hears the voice in the back of his head, which is, like, the audience, like, votes or whatever. But, like, he still has his own sort of will. He isn't forced to do anything against his will. So he is, like, very independent and just is his own character. And I don't know why. I just really feel drawn to Kibo, and I love him a lot. And I don't want anybody to be picking on my boy. So stop being mean to Kibo. Talking to you, Kokichi, and all the other characters. But I don't know, I really like him a lot, so that is why he's number 2. But unfortunately, he cannot eclipse the best character in the game, and it's not even close, and that's Maki. I mean, Maki has an incredible journey just throughout the game, from being very closed off and aloof from everybody. She starts off as, like, the ultimate nurse, child caregiver, whatever it was. Even though that just is a front for her being the ultimate assassin. That's another one where it's just, like, her profession as an assassin sort of goes against like what everybody's trying to do in the killing game, where everybody wants to work together, and it's just like, can you work together with somebody who's like killing people? And you have people like Kokichi sort of spurring that along, and then you have people like Kaito that is really just trying to see the best in Maki, because I do think that Maki's another one that she really does just have like a heart of gold. Like I don't know if she's like as pure as like someone like Ryoma, but she just doesn't really come across as like selfish to me. I don't know. And you see that she does essentially attempt to commit a kill in the chapter 5. Yeah, in chapter 5. So like she comes close to like being a culprit, and she lucks out of not being a culprit because of Kaito and Kokichi's like plan and whatnot. So I mean, that was close, and that almost broke my heart when I almost had to pick Maki as the culprit for that chapter, and I'm glad she didn't end up being the culprit. And I'm glad that she got to survive to the end. I kind of called it kind of as soon as they said Ultimate Assassin. I was like, there's no way she kills anybody. That just wouldn't work. But the fact that she does actually end up trying sort of subverted my expectations there a little bit, as well as she could have easily been killed in any of the chapters, but she didn't. She made it through, and her backstory is also really good. It's really just her sort of like reserved attitude. She's not over the top or anything like that. She really just has the personality that I vibe with a lot in games like this, and I just really, really like her a lot. And I don't know, I don't really know any other way of just explaining that Maki is just like my favorite character, and like it wasn't even close for a long time, probably from like as early as chapter 3 or 4. I just like knew that Maki was going to be my favorite, and it just never really changed. So yeah, that is how I feel, and that is probably how I'm going to feel for a long time. I can't see anybody making an argument to me for my personal taste as to why I would put any of these characters above Maki. So that is the entire completed list of ranking all of the 16 students in Danganronpa V3. Let me know how this compares to your list, what some of your favorites, what some of your least favorites are. Let me know reactions to anything that I said, corrections to anything I missaid. Yeah, this is going to be the last Danganronpa video that you'll see for a while. In the future, I would love to do a sort of like ultimate Danganronpa, maybe a tier list or something, where I just, every single character in the Danganronpa universe, I'd like to sort of rank them against each other. It would also be nice to revisit some of my opinions on past games characters, because I do think that some of them have changed. So that could be something. I would like to maybe do a trial ranking in the future. I don't know. I'm not sure what other sort of Danganronpa stuff would happen, but it's not going to be for a while, but it will be eventually. So let me know if you're looking forward to that, if you have any other suggestions as to what sort of Danganronpa stuff you'd like to see from me. But this has been a fun journey. I'm glad that I got to do another character ranking, and hopefully you all enjoyed. So if you did, let me know, and I will see you all around. So until then, peace out.